Hello, Year 6. My name's Mr. Blythe. I'm the head of music here at King's. I hope you and your family are taking care and doing well. I thought this would be a great opportunity to just introduce myself and music at King's and give you a little bit of an insight about what to expect in the music department as you join us. So first of all, we're going to listen to just a short extract of music and really focus on one of the three core skills, which is a listening and appraising music task. So analysing what we hear. You need to decide which image best represents what you're hearing, and I want you to be able to justify your reasons for it. So decide musically what's happening to make you think of that image. As you're listening to this music, maybe think about the way the instrument's playing, and are the rhythms fast? Are they short notes, long notes? What happens to the pitch, the high and lowness of the notes? What could that sharp sound maybe be representing what we just heard then? Hopefully you've had a chance to think about what you've heard and decided on an image that it's best representing. Now in that piece there were quite a lot of changes in the duration of the notes, how long they were lasting. They were very short notes, and we call this the rhythm of the notes. So hopefully we'd all agree there that image number 3, which is the bumblebee, is being best represented. And I think that's because of the tempo. It's a very fast moving piece of music, and the rhythms that are being used are very short, quick rhythms. And we also have an additional thing, which is the actual pitch of the instruments. It's a very high-pitched instrument, or instruments in that case, that are being used. And that high-pitchedness is giving that small, delicate bumblebee, but it also allows the very close movement between the notes. We call it stepwise or conjunct movement, the connected notes. Now, there were lots of different timbres and instruments heard in that piece, and I want you to consider this as a question. Is all sound music, or is it just sound? If you were to put your head out the window right now, you might hear a car passing, you might hear a dog barking. So thinking about where we would hear music or sound in everyday life. So that could be at maybe a restaurant. You hear a CD or the radio's playing. As you're travelling to school in the car, you hear music. It could be that you're at a football game and you hear music. But the more important question is, can you explain the difference between sound and music? Is there a difference? Or do we just say that any sound that we hear has to be music? So if a friend or family member tells you that what you're listening to isn't music, it's just noise, maybe that's a difference in opinion. But at what point do we cross over from what is just an everyday sound to become music? So I want you to think about this. You're driving through a tunnel, and as you go through the tunnel, a lot of people tend to honk their horns. And as we get to this tunnel, as we approach the opening, we're going to see and hear lots of different sounds. It might be the sound of a car horn, the sound of the screeching of tyres, the sound of the wind. It could be that a train's also going through. So the hypothesis for today is all music is sound, but not all sound is music. Now, I'm sure there's some of us amongst us that might argue that what we've just listened to is music, it's maybe therapeutic. But what I want to delve into is, at what point can we decide just everyday sound, everyday objects become music. And I'm going to take you on a little bit of an interactive tour here. There are lots of different elements to this, but the one we're going to focus on today is the musical elements. And this is not like your science elements, this is the musical version. Think of it like baking a cake. If I told you all to go away as your task and bake a cake, everybody might come back with different cakes. Some might be lemon, some might be chocolate, some might be carrot cakes, but no one's going to come in and give me a lettuce and say, there you go, sir, there's a cake. We all use the same set of ingredients, and these set of ingredients are very clearly what we call the musical elements. If you will, our sugar, flour, eggs to the cake, or we use rhythm, we use pitch, we use instruments to create our musical elements. So I'm going to click this center icon, and it's going to play me an unchanged piece of music that you should have heard before. So it's just popped up to tell me to start here. Now, this looks like it's representing a clock. So it's going to have something to do with maybe time, hopefully. And if I click it, it pops up as duration, which is the length of the notes. Now, those notes have got much shorter. Lots and lots of different rhythms there, or note values. The duration, the length changed. And duration is just the length of those notes. And they can go longer, some can be shorter, and we use special names for them. So if we want something to last 4 beats or a long time, we call it a semi-breve or a whole note. And if we want just 1 beat or a quarter of a whole note, we call that a crotchet beat. And we have these different values to tell somebody how long to play. Music notation is just a little bit like a script for an actor. The actor uses the script to tell them what to say, when to say it, and maybe how to say it. And for musicians, we use a similar method. We have rhythm, which tells us when to play the notes, and then we have pitch, which tells us what note you want us to play. We also have dynamics, which tells us how loud to play. So dynamics in itself is just a volume indicator for us. Notice how it's getting louder now. It's very soft now, so we would say pianissimo. Now, as a non-musician, you would describe that piece of music changing from being quiet or playing softly to it gradually got louder and then maybe became loud at the very end. Now, as professional musicians, we start to introduce Italian terms to describe the volume and the dynamics of the music. So we have piano, which just means soft or played quietly, and then maybe forte, which means loud, it's Italian for loud, and fortissimo, meaning very loud. Now, they're big words with lots of letters, so we use what's known as a dynamic sign to indicate. And it's the same if you were in English. You wouldn't write the word question mark at the end of your sentence. You would put the symbol for it. I'm going to click reset, and we're going to have a look at the next one. And this is tempo. Remember we said at the start, this is the speed. So it's very slow now. We could say it's lento or largo, very slow. It's getting faster now. So allegro or presto, fast, very fast. So tempo is the speed of the music. How fast does it go? And we measure this in BPM or beats per minute. Just like in science, how you might measure the pulse, the heartbeat. We're measuring this in beats per minute. Let's have a look at the next one. And this is pitch. This is what note to play, how high or low the note is. Now, pitch is really important because lots and lots of different instruments are used for different pitches. So we can see here, it's given an example of string instruments. The smaller the instrument, like a violin or a piccolo, which is a small flute, the higher the notes, the higher the pitch. And the larger the instruments, for example, a double bass or a tuba, is the lower the pitch. And these musical symbols, known as clefs, tell the musician how high or low those notes are going to be. It gives them a range for the notes. So as we move on to the next musical element, which is texture, this tells us how many instruments we can hear at once, the layers of instruments. So now we've got a much denser texture. There are more instruments that are being played at any one time. Now, to stretch ourselves, so we're not describing music as thin and thick, we want to be using more professional terminology throughout the year. If we were to take the word phonic, and you all did phonics in primary school, phonic just means sound, and mono means one. So if we've got a monophonic sound, it means we've got just one instrument playing. So just the one melody line, the one sound, the mono sound. And if we contrast that and add lots more instruments in, if we had a shape with many sides, we would say a polygon. And if we take the poly, meaning many, and add it to our phonic, meaning sound, polyphonic, many sounds. Remember, I'm going to click reset, and I'm going to now explore this next one. And this next one is the structure. It's how the music's organised. So with the structure, when we organise, it's the map or our plan of the music, where the different sections of the music are broken up to. And we might use an introduction, a verse, a pre-chorus and a chorus, and they're popular music structures. Or we might use letters, A, B, A. So section A, a contrasting section B, and then returning back to our original theme, just like Twinkle Twinkle does. And what we heard in that piece of music then is I've changed the order of the short little melodies and repeated some and swapped them around and changed the structure, the plan of my music. The picture of the guitar represents the instrumentation, what instrument is being used. So we heard three different instruments then. We heard a glockenspiel, which is a German instrument, which is German for play the bells. It's the metal version of what people think the xylophone is. And the xylophone was the wooden instrument. And then we heard a guitar. But in particular, it was an electric guitar, and it had a distortion, it had an additional effect to give it that gritty sound. Instrumentation just means, what instruments can you hear and can you identify? The last musical element we're going to have a look at today is one of the most challenging ones, and it's called tonality, whether it's sad or happy. So I'm playing it much sadder now, and we call it minor. And if we think of it like this, back in the old days when we used to mine for all the coal, the minors go down and the majors go up. So when we have a major and minor tonality, if it's major, it's happy sounding, it sounds joyful. If it's minor, it sounds sad. So we've had our musical elements that we've just gone through, and that's how we create music. So the original hypothesis of all music is sound, but not all sound is music, is a really tricky one, because some of you might think that the sound of car horns going through a tunnel is music, and maybe it is, but what we can all agree on is we should consciously put these sounds together with rhythm, with pitch, and different instruments to create our music. Otherwise, are we not just creating noise? And we'll have this debate and this discussion in September, and I'll let you bring your own ideas to it. I want to explore a little bit more rhythm, though. And rhythm is our duration, our different length notes that are put in a pattern. We're going to have a go at clapping some different rhythms and playing some. And we can see here we've got those names we saw before. The semi-breve, which is 4 beats. A minim, 2 beats. And a crotchet, that is 1 beat. So if we do the maths behind this, we need 4 crotchet beats to be equal to one of the whole notes or the semi-breve that's being held for 4 counts. And a really good way to remember these beats is using rhythm mnemonics. If we had a crotchet, which is 1 beat, we can use any 1 syllable word to remember how to play or clap that beat. And I'm going to look at drinks. Crotchet is Coke. So we would have Coke, 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 Coke. If I then take this one, and this was our quaver, which is worth half a beat, it's like having half a can of Fanta, but we need the other can, the other half, to make the full can, to make the whole Coke. Otherwise, you've not got a full drink. So I'm going to put the 2 together, and then I get a full can of Fanta. So now what I've got is Coke, 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 Coke. And if I clap the Fantas, I should have twice as many claps, because this one is worth 1 whole, and this one is only worth a half, because we had the half, remember, and we've added the other half to it by adding the extra note and joining them up. So now I've got Fanta, 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 Coke, 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 Coke. And we could do this one. Can anyone come up with a drink? And we need 4 syllables. 4 syllables for this drink. I'll give you a bit of a hint. I've got a quarter of it there. But I need a full drink. So I'm going to have the Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper. So now I'm using these rhythm mnemonics to be able to see a rhythm, which is on the left, and clap it. So as a recap, we're looking at Coke, 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 Coke. And notice every time I do this, I clap the 4 times, because I'm sticking to what we call a time signature, which is how many beats are within the bar. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So Coke, 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 Coke. If that was to carry on, and we're at 1, 2, but I changed it to Fantas. Fanta, 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 Fanta. It still lasted just 4 clicks of my finger banter, fanter, fanter, fanter. And it's because if we were to have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 are 4 beats, but if they were half beats, they would still be equal to 4 in total because I would have 8 half beats. And this bottom one is our Dr. Pepper. 1, 2, 3, 4. Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper. They're worth a quarter each. We're going to try clapping some of these, and I'm going to let you pause the video in a few moments and have a go yourself. So we're going to clap. We're going to start at number 1, and you're going to have 15 seconds to look at your rhythm, decide whether it is a Coke, Fanta, or maybe a Dr. Pepper, and then try clapping it out loud. So 15 seconds. So that's our Coke, 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 Coke. So well done for those that got it right. If you use that rhythm mnemonic, it helps you clap the rhythm. And we're doing what we call internalizing a pulse. And if we go back to the start hypothesis of all music is sound, but not all sound is music, what we're creating by clapping is intentional sound. We've intended to clap at a certain time. Therefore, it is becoming music. We would need to do other things, maybe add other rhythms in. So if we add another rhythm in, and if you've got maybe any family or siblings at home, they could clap along with this. 15 seconds. Notice now we've got a pair of quavers, so we've got the Fanta in here. Coke, Fanta, Coke, Coke. Brilliant. So what I would like you to do next is create your own rhythms. I'm going to give you 10 minutes now to go away, create your own rhythms. I want them to be 4 bars long. So if I give you an example, it will be like this. I'm going to count myself in, and I'm only going to use these rhythms. So I'm going to have 4 bars, and I must count myself in to stay in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Coke, Coke, Fanta, Coke, Coke, Fanta, 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 Coke, Dr. Pepper, Dr. Pepper, Coke, Coke, Dr. Pepper, Fanta, Coke. I had 4 bars there, and I used the different rhythms. So I'd like you to create a video. It only has to be a short video. Mine was maybe 10, 15 seconds long maximum. And remember, your video should use simple 4/4 time. There are 4 beats in a bar. And come up with your own mnemonics. It might be that you change the drinks to food types, football teams. It might be that you change them to your own name. So you record a video. When you've recorded that video, send it to Miss Persian, and then I get to see what you've done, and it'll be fantastic. And then in September, we can take the knowledge we've learnt and then transfer it to instruments. In Learning Cycle 1, we expand on the elements of music, looking at how we can use a MAD t-shirt, melody starting, which is our pitch, the tune, to create our own songs, our own performances. We very, very occasionally touch pen and paper in the music lessons because music is all about performing and making as much noise as possible. I'm going to leave you with this link to Exploring the Power of Music. And I want you to listen to the following piece of film music and identify as many orchestral instruments as you can. Orchestral instruments are things like the string family, violins, violas, cellos, the brass family, percussion family, and the woodwind family. And as I say, my name's Mr. Blythe, the head of music, and I can't wait to see you all in September. Keep safe and take care.